Hi, I'm Lawrence Ball. I'm a math tutor, and I'd like to show you a way to do pretend telepathy. Actually, it's not really pretend telepathy. It's actually a way to get familiar with how to use algebra. But it's also a fun way to fool your friends into believing that you might just possibly have read their mind, especially if they haven't seen it before. Okay, so here we go. I want you to do some calculations for me. Are you ready? Hopefully you are. Now, think of a number between 1 and 5. Now don't tell me what it is, but remember it for later on, okay? You got one? Okay, now double it. Okay. Now add 10. Now halve it, or divide it by 2, same thing. Okay. Now take away the number that you started off with. Your answer is 5. Well, it should be. If it isn't, you made a mistake. Okay, let's try another one. The reason, by the way, I keep it between 1 and 5 is because if you try this on someone who's not very good at arithmetic and they make a mistake, it backfires on everybody. So keep the numbers small. Most adults make mistakes like this, let alone younger people. So again, think of a number between 1 and 5. Don't tell me, but remember it for later. You have to include that because some people might just go ahead and tell you, and they might forget, which of course ruins the bit at the end. Think of a number between 1 and 5. Don't tell me, but remember it for later. Okay. Now multiply by 3. Okay. Now add 12. Okay. Now divide by 3. And lastly, take away the number that you started off with. Okay. Your answer is 4. Let's just do one more, just to show you how the numbers can be varied each time. In fact, you can make these up as you go along, which is I'm actually doing at this moment. Think of, again, a number between 1 and 5. Don't tell me, but remember it for later. Now, times by 5. Add 10. Divide by 5. Now take away the number that you started off with. And your answer is 2. Now, this is algebra, so let's have a look at how the pretend telepathy actually works. I often teach this at the beginning of learning algebra with my students. We start off with a number we don't know. Now in algebra, it's actually useful to have a way of referring to something we don't know. It might seem a little strange to you, but that's what we do. So we're really beginning a new kind of math where we no longer talk about numbers we know, like 6 or 3.2 or a quarter. We start talking about numbers we don't know, which of course we have to find some other way of representing. X or some other letter is used. Now in this number trick, what I do, I ask you to double the number. When I ask you to double the number, we don't know what number you've got now, but we do know whatever it is twice the number we started with. So at this point in the number trick, we have 2x, twice a number we don't know. Still don't know what it is. Then I asked you if you remember to add 10. In algebra we represent this 2x, which means 2 times x, plus 10. We still don't know what the number is that you have, but we do know whatever it is twice what you started with 10 added on extra. Now here's the clever bit. What we now do, is we halve the 2x plus 10, and halve the number you've got now, and we can do that by halving the two pieces separately. Half of twice a number we don't know is just a number, and half of 10, which we do know, is 5. Now this is extremely clever because no one really notices that the 10 and the 5 are connected, unless they know this whole thing anyway. So we now take away the number you started with, which of course is the x, and guess what? You're left with 5 no matter what you started with. Any uncertainty has been removed. We now know exactly what the number you finish with is. And that's how the first one works. Now, a very similar principle. Let's look at the other two I went through. Again, think of a number between 1 and 5. Don't tell me, but remember it. We write x. A number we don't know. I'm very fond of this little phrase I tell my students. It makes them laugh, makes me laugh too. X is a number we don't know, but we can still talk about it, even though we don't know what it is. It's easy to forget that in algebra because you can end up with a pile of equations and mumbo jumbo and it just turns into nothing. Then I ask multiply by 3, which I'm thinking to myself because I don't know what the number is. In fact, could have a whole room full of people with different numbers. It's now 3 times the number we started with. Now I ask you to add 12. So we now have 3 times the number we started with 12 added on extra. And again, the clever part, we divide 3x plus 12 by 3 by dividing the two pieces separately. So they're added together, we can do that. 3x divided by 3, of course, is just x, which you then want to remove. Plus 12 divided by 3 is clearly 4. And then we say, take away the number you started with. Should give people plenty of time doing this, because if you're trying to impress people, particularly people who don't know the trick, you want to make sure that the answer comes out right, because if someone sees this for the first time, they get a real shock. I remember with one of my students, I had him do it with his mother, and his mother hadn't seen it before. She could hardly believe he came out with the answer. So a very nice moment for both of them. Lastly, think of a number between 1 and 5, don't tell me, but remember it for later, times by 5. And again, in algebra we call that 5x. 5 times a number we don't know. Now we add 10. There's a slight delay on this camera. My pen is about a split second late. It's very disorientating. So we added 10. We now have 5 times the number we don't know with 10 added on extra. Now we divide by 5. 5 times the number we don't know with 10 added on divided by 5 is going to be the number with 2 added on extra. And then we take away the start number and we get 2. I hope that clarifies it. What you basically have to realize is that the number you multiply and divide by must be the same, otherwise it's not going to come back to x. And the number you add on needs to be a number that number goes into. In this case, 10 has to divide by 5. You couldn't add 11 and have the answer come out to be a whole number. And you must always remember to take away the number you start with. It may help to remember that you have one of each of the operations. We have a times, an add, a divide, and a subtract. Well, if you hadn't seen this before, I hope you found this interesting. And hopefully now, or soon, you can always watch this again. You can play this trick on your friends, family, particularly people who don't know about it, and even better, your maths teacher, which will impress them no end and maybe cause a creative diversion in what might be a slightly boring class. Cheers.